In 1958, British censors slapped an X certificate on the Trollenberg Terror because of a handful of explicit scenes. A headless climber, melting flesh, a severed head, and a hotel lobby attack with a shocking monster reveal. I'll show you what ended up on screen, why it disturbed audiences, and how a low-budget production shot on a studio set and retitled for US drive-ins turned fog, miniatures, and timing into real B-movie shock. Let's get into it. Fantasy, sci-fi, horror, rerun zone. The Trollenberg Terror, aka The Crawling Eye, 1958. This tale starts out on the fictional Swiss mountain Trollenberg, where one of 3 mountaineers is killed when he, literally, loses his head. It's a shocking moment that happens in the first 2 minutes of the movie. What a hell of an opening. At the exact same time, an American UN troubleshooter named Alan Brooks is riding on a train to Trollenberg, along with sisters Anne and Sarah Pilgrim, a mind-reading act out of London. Anne, who we find out later is a real telepath, faints as the train passes by Trollenberg Mountain. Anne is played by a young Janet Monroe, who later starred in the excellent sci-fi thriller The Day the Earth Caught Fire in 1961. We also see Forrest Tucker here as Alan Brooks, before he starred on television as Sergeant O'Rourke in F Troop. When Anne wakes up, she insists that she and her sister get off at the next stop, even though they've never been to Trollenberg before. Brooks is on his way to see Professor Crevitt at the Trollenberg Observatory about something even stranger though. A radioactive cloud that just hovers on one face of the mountain and never seems to move. Once everyone arrives at the local hotel, Anne performs her little mind-reading act when she suddenly gets a vacant look in her eyes and has a vision of 2 men in a hut high on the mountain. At that exact moment, the cloud rolls in, and Anne passes out again. They dial up the hut on a landline, and the phone is filled with screaming before it goes dead. When Brooks and the rescue team get to the hut, they find it frozen solid from the inside, and one of the men's bodies is jammed under the bed. When they pull the body out, surprise, it doesn't have a head. When rescuers are searching for the other man, they find the infamous rucksack, where we get a quick glimpse of the severed head. Suddenly, they're attacked by the other man, who kills the rescuers with an ice axe. He then staggers back to the hotel, and when he sees Anne, he pulls out a knife and attacks her. Brooks stops him just in time, and he falls to the floor, slicing his head open, but there's no blood. Where's the blood? A blast from the past. Brooks realizes this is the same kind of phenomenon that he and Professor Crevitt witnessed years earlier in the Andes. The creatures in the cloud can take over people and use them to kill anyone. They mainly target people with psychic abilities, though, like telepaths, who can detect them. From there, the movie turns into a siege. The radioactive cloud finally starts to move down the mountain toward the hotel, so everyone evacuates to the observatory. But a little girl gets left behind, which is when the monster makes its shocking entrance. Brooks goes back to save the little girl and sees this huge, single-eyed tentacle creature pushing through the hotel door. He grabs the girl and they just barely make it back to the cable car, when the mist freezes the machinery and almost causes the car to fall. Now there are multiple clouds crawling toward the observatory. Even up there, they're not safe. Another possessed man tries to strangle Anne, but again, they save her just in time. From Tube to Trollenberg. The film had its roots 2 years earlier on British television, when a 6-part Saturday serial called The Trollenberg Terror was aired. When the feature got the go-ahead, the producers kept director Quentin Lawrence and even reused 2 of the actors from the serial, Lawrence Payne and Stuart Saunders. The movie, produced by Robert S. Baker and Monty Berman, was shot on a very tight schedule and featured just enough special effects to sell the menace of the monster. Jimmy Sangster, already a prize name at Hammer Films, wrote the screenplay, and Les Bowie supervised the effects, including miniatures, matte shots, and that notorious tentacled eye. The result is classic late 50s British sci-fi, methodical and chilling, with a couple of images that you will never forget. Most of what is depicted as Switzerland was actually filmed at Southall Studios in West London. They built the hotel, the cable car, the observatory, and a mountain hut that looks like it might fall apart under a stiff wind. This was the final feature film completed at Southall Studios before the lot closed. Think about it. A pioneering British facility ended its run with a crawling extraterrestrial eyeball peering through a wall of mist. Fitting somehow. The release path was also very weird. While it was filmed in the UK, it was released in the US first in July 1958 and was retitled The Crawling Eye for marketing purposes. Distributors thought that a more sensational title would sell better in America, and they were probably right. Cosmic Monsters meets The Crawling Eye. It was paired on a double bill with another low-budget British film, The Strange World of Planet X, which was also retitled Cosmic Monsters in the US, and it also starred Forrest Tucker in the lead role. Britain released the film a few months later as the Trollenberg Terror. When they got a look at the movie, the British censors slapped it with an X certificate, stopping anyone under the age of 16 from seeing the film. Surprisingly, though, it isn't wall-to-wall gore, but it does fixate on the decapitations and melting flesh just long enough to feel a little too nasty for Britain in 1958, even though it's pretty tame by today's standards. What really makes the film work is the build-up to the monster reveal. The radioactive cloud is impersonal and is a very vague threat, but when it starts to act like a hunter, it becomes more real. When the doors burst open at the hotel and the tentacles finally slide into view, the movie shifts into hyperdrive and the action kicks in. The pop culture afterlife of this film is huge for a low-budget picture. Under the US title The Crawling Eye, it's the first nationally broadcast episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 when the show moved to the Comedy Channel in late 1989. It was the movie that really set the tone of that show. It's also singled out as an influence on John Carpenter's The Fog, and even shows up in Stephen King's novel It in 1986, where a crawling eye becomes one of the monster's shapes. Now don't expect a sweeping sci-fi epic here though. It's just great B-movie fare. Fog machines, rubber tentacles, and mood over money. The rough edges are the charm, and that late-night creature feature vibe is exactly why I like it. If that kind of low-budget, slightly schlocky sci-fi is your thing, you're going to have a great time with this one. If you're seeing it for the first time, it's a capsule of the British B-movie industry at the end of a brilliant chapter. It was a film that was rated adults only in its home country, sold as a drive-in double feature in the US, and then later graduated to cult TV status. Well, that's the Trollenberg Terror, aka The Crawling Eye, a crisp, chilly thriller that spends its money on the right moments and leaves you watching every suspicious cloud like it's waiting to pounce. This is Rich from Rerun Zone. Thanks for watching, and good night.